Hello everybody, welcome to the homework and the lab assignment for Chapter 11 of Price Analysis, a Fundamental Approach to the Study of Commodity Prices. So in this chapter we consider the effects of ending stocks on the ultimate price that farmers receive during the marketing year. So what we're going to really focus on in this lab exercise is basically recreating figures 2 and figures 3 for corn, soybeans, and wheat in Chapter 11. So let's just take a look at what it is we're trying to recreate. Here in figure 2, we've got this chart for corn, and it's plotting the stocks to use variable over time, and also the prices received by farmers variable over time. Now you'll recall that prices received by farmers is a forecast that's provided in the bottom row of each WASDE report, and both ending stocks and total use are two different rows within the WASDE report. So we basically, for this chart, taking a look at information from historical WASDE reports and plotting them here. And during the lecture we discussed how generally you can see that the 1980s, due to government-held stocks, had extremely high levels of stocks to use ratio. But other than that, you can definitely see an inverse relationship, as we would expect, between stocks and prices. When stocks spike down, prices tend to spike up, and vice versa. Now, figure 3 was created from the exact same data set, except instead of plotting it as a time series with time on the x-axis, we just plotted it as an XY scatter plot with stocks to use in the x-axis and dollars per bushel or average farm price received on the y-axis, and revealed a definitely inverse relationship and even a nonlinear one. And we explored that a little bit more in a little bit more detail in figure 4. So like I said, what we're going to do in this lab exercise is basically go and recreate these figures for corn, soybeans, and wheat. So next I want us just to scroll down here to the bottom, and you'll see a complete list of instructions for this lab. And what we have set to do first is to go to www.agmanager.info. That's the extension website of Kansas State University's Agricultural Economics Department. There's a lot of excellent information there. For the previous parts of this course, we've been really focused on using data directly from the USDA or from the FarmDoc website for obvious reasons, but I wanted you to be aware of other resources around the country, and Kansas State's is one of the best that there is. And they have particularly useful information for this application. So we're going to go there. So we're going to go to their website, go to where they provide the historical data from the WASDE reports, and they have separate spreadsheets for corn, soybeans, and wheat. We are going to download all three of those. So let's do it. I'll do it by Google search in case you find that useful for later. So if I open a new tab and type K-State Ag Info, you can see I did this earlier, you will get directed to the agmanager.info website, which is where we want to go. Now the information we're interested in for this exercise is found under the grain marketing menu. And if you go all the way down to grain supply and demand, it's listed there conveniently as WASDE. We'll get the information that we want. Alright, so here in the grain marketing website, in the grain supply and demand section, they do provide nice charts. Let's just click one of these, corn planted acres. This should look familiar. We've seen this same data in our textbook in an earlier chapter. If I go back, they provide lots of different charts for lots of different crops and just different parts of the WASDE report that people find interesting. This last section here, though, are links to the complete WASDE historical data sets. So let's click there, and it's basically just a link that clicks you all the way to the bottom of that web page, so you could have scrolled down and found the same thing. Here in this area, we have spreadsheets for corn, soybeans, and wheat with historical WASDE report information going back to at least the mid-1970s. So next what we're going to do is just download all three of these. Corn, soybeans, wheat. Okay, and then let's go peek at our instructions. We've downloaded all three. That was this. Next is telling us to open all 3 Excel tables, and then also a new Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to have us take the information we're most concerned with from the 3 crops and copy and paste it into one clean spreadsheet. So let's do that. I'm going to open up corn, soybeans, and wheat. Corn, soybeans, and wheat. Alright, the next thing was to open up a new Excel spreadsheet, so I'm going to do that first. Open new, and you want to save that somewhere. But what we are basically going to do is take information from these spreadsheets and put it into one for us that's going to be clean. So when I opened up the corn historical spreadsheet, you can see here the data that they've got in here. Part of it, I'm in the annual raw data tab right now. They've got it organized just like a WASD. These rows should be very familiar. Then they've put the years here in the columns, so you can see this data set goes back to 73, 74, and then our current USDA spreadsheet expectations for 2017 are listed here, highlighted in blue. And then since this variable stocks to use is something that's widely followed by the market, they went ahead and calculated that. So let's take a look. What exactly is stocks to use? Well, it's just this ending stocks variable from the WASD report divided by the total usage variable from the WASD report. And the WASD also provides an interval range of the average farm price received expectations for the marketing year. They've obviously just taken the midpoint of that interval and plugged it into this spreadsheet because we know that the WASD contains an actual interval range. Okay, so I think if we click over here to this annual data tab, it's going to be in a form that's a little bit more useful to us. They've organized now rows to be the marketing years, and then they put the columns of the WASD, the rows of the WASD here in columns. So it's going to be easy to plot any one of these categories over time. Now if you scroll to the right, you can see a bunch of other stuff that they've calculated, but here in columns X and Y are basically going to be the columns we're interested in. So what I want us to do is grab the column B and then columns X and Y and put them in the other spreadsheet. So notice that to select multiple columns that are not next to each other, I'm going to put my cursor up here at the top of the column, and I'm holding down the Control key on a Windows machine, and you would do whatever the equivalent motion is on a Mac machine. And I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to navigate over to my empty spreadsheet and do a Control V. Okay, so notice I tried to drop it just in a cell, and when I did Control V it gave me an error message, but when I highlighted the entire column and did Control V, it dropped it in there just fine. So let's go ahead and delete that stuff that it brought along at the top, and I'm going to label this corn, make it a little more obvious and prominent. Then we'll put soybeans here. I'll wait till I drop it in. And they have prices going back to 1929, but they only have stocks to use starting in 1973. So when we get it all said and done, we will trim these rows to include only years that have actual information for stocks to use. But we'll wait until we get corn, soybeans, and wheat all in there to make sure everything lines up correctly. Alright, I'm going to go over to the soybean spreadsheet, and it's a similar thing here. They have in this main column called Soybean Annual Balance Sheet, the spreadsheet that's organized just like the WASD report with the stocks to use variable calculated conveniently for us. And we've got the average farm price there. But more convenient for us is going to be to click over to this annual sheet where they basically put in here the transposed values. And again, what we want is the year column and this ending stocks to use variable that they've already calculated for us, and the average farm price received, which in this case is column W. So we want columns for the soybean spreadsheet, columns B, U, and W. I'm going to do a Control C, go back to my other spreadsheet, and I'm going to drop it here into column D. And I'm going to try to make everything line up. So what I think I'm going to do is highlight the whole range and drag this down by hand. I'm off by 1 here. 1973. Okay, I'm going to take these column headings, put them at the top. Alright, so now we have corn and soybeans. Let me label it. Soybeans. And I'm going to do a format painter here. I'm going to highlight the corn cell, click Format Painter, and then click the soybean cell, and it'll copy the formatting over there, which is convenient. Alright, let's go get our wheat information. Wheat annual balance sheet, same thing. They've got it organized nice, but we want to go over here to the annual sheet and grab this year column. Okay, they don't have the big year listed there. That's fine. Year, I want ending stocks to use. It's here in column X and column Y, so I'm doing a control click to highlight just those rows. Control C, flip over, highlight column G, do a control V. Similarly here, I am going to want to highlight this whole range of data and just drag it down until 1973 matches. Okay, 73 all the way across there. Let's take a peek at the bottom of the row and make sure everything's fine. 2017, 2017, 17. Okay, so our data should be all aligned correctly. I'll drag these labels back down, label this wheat, paint the format over. Now we're good. Now I am going to scoot these over because we only really need one year column. I kept those along just to make sure we got everything lined up properly, but now really we can delete these year columns now that we've made sure that that's happened. But I didn't want to delete my labels too. Okay, so now we've got year, stocks to use, and average price for all 3 commodities. And what I want us to do is now delete all of those rows above 1973 where we had a bunch of empty data. So I highlighted this range, and now I'm going to do right click, delete, shift cells up. Alright, now we got a nice pretty data table. If we wanted to make it even prettier, we can make sure the fonts are all the same. Looks good. We could fiddle with that all day. Now I'm going to end this video and we will go back over to the instructions and see what we need to do to finish up this assignment.